Shall we begin? Let's begin now.
Hello everybody, welcome to episode number 3. This video is going to be a month recap video. So at the end of each month, what I'm going to try to do is do a video just to recap 3 different areas of my month. So this is kind of something that I learned from Tim Ferriss. Is the way that he structures his life is something that I think is phenomenal and something that I try to do in my own life. So what this videos are going to consist of is, the first thing is going to be 3 things that I learned from the month before. So I'll talk about 3 different things that I found most interesting, that I came across, that hopefully will help all of you out as well, or hopefully that you will find interesting as well. And the second thing is going to be an experiment recap. So what that means is, if you watch my intro video, you would have learned that a way that I like to go about things is I sort of break my life up into long-term goals and then short-term goals and short-term experiments, whether it's a week-long experiment or a month-long experiment or whatever it might be. And normally I do month-long experiments, so that's how this will come into play. Is I'll kind of give a review of the experiment that I did the month before. And then if it worked out well, it's something that, might get incorporated into a daily habit or weekly or monthly or even yearly. And if it's something that's interesting to you, then you can give it a try yourself. And the other thing will be a book recap. So each month, I try to get through one book. If it's longer one, sometimes it'll take me 2, but I'll try to get through a book a month, and I'll give a little recap of that book, and I won't give away any spoilers, but a little bit of a recap for those of you who are readers and who are interested in finding new and good books. So those will be kind of the 3 things. And in the experiments and in the books, I'll also let you know what I'll be doing for the upcoming month. So if you want to follow along with me and try these things out yourself as I am, please feel free to. And then if you have questions as it's going along, you can message me and we can kind of talk about it together. If it's a book and you want to kind of read with someone to stay accountable, I can be that person for you. So that's what these videos are going to consist of. So this is going to be the February recap. So the 3 things that are kind of the favorite things that I've learned this past month are, the first one is, I tried to take out as much sugar as I possibly could from my diet. So I got really picky with this. I found basically everything that I had that had added sugar, got rid of it, and tried to find replacements that didn't have any added sugar in it. So some of the really challenging ones were salsa. I love salsa because I put salsa on my avocado every day when I eat it. And finding a salsa that had no added sugar has been extremely challenging. So I found one, and I can't remember what the name of it was, but I haven't been able to get it since. And it was at Nature's Fair in Kelowna. They had a sugar-free salsa, and it was pretty good, but I haven't been able to find it since, so I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do for a replacement of that yet. And then the other thing was pasta. Finding pasta and pasta sauces with no added sugar was another relatively challenging task. So those are some things that I've had to try to figure out and work around that I haven't been able to fully find replacements for yet. So I'm still in the works of that. It's because I really enjoy eating pasta. But taking out sugar, it's one of these things that it's so challenging to do because it's in everything. But I switched up some of my supplements. I switched up just some things that I eat on a normal day to try to minimize as much sugar intake as I possibly could. So I've been using stevia as a sweetener for things like my coffee and teas and things like that instead of anything else. The one thing that I have that's still basically just straight up sugar is I put a little bit of honey in my tea that I have at nighttime, just because it helps me kind of crash out, and I get that sort of spike and crash, and then I'm able to sleep a little bit better. But this is going to be something that I recommend to everybody, is if you experience that mid-afternoon fatigue, it's a very good chance it has to do with what you're eating. I noticed that taking out sugar, my energy levels are so much more consistent than they ever were before. So if you experience that kind of midday crash, take a look at what you're eating in the mornings and just in your normal day, because it might not just be what you're eating in the morning that's causing it. But this includes things like fruit juices first thing in the morning. That's basically just straight up sugar. Or if you have a lot of honey, or if you put sugar in your coffee, or all of these sorts of things, or if you have white bread toast and stuff that's really high on the glycemic index and this sort of things, is they can be contributing to that midday crash that you feel. So taking out that sugar, that's the very first thing that I noticed that really improved, is that I don't have that midday crash as much as I used to. And it's basically gone. I basically maintain a pretty steady energy state throughout the entire day now that I've taken sugar out of my diet. So, and in addition, I just feel better. I just feel like my body's getting in what it wants, and it's not just having flavored things all of the times, but I'm getting in stuff that it can actually use and that's beneficial to it, compared to things that just taste good but just sort of go through it and don't really do anything and might actually be detrimental compared to beneficial. So that's the first thing. First thing that I've learned and that I kind of implemented this past month that is huge, and I really recommend for a lot of you to try to remove as much sugar as you possibly can. Fruits are okay, but whole fruits, because then you get the fibers in with it, and it can help kind of counteract. But if you want to be kind of picky with that, save some of those until later on in the day, and that'll also sort of help with reaching that crash when you're about to go to sleep, and also removing that midday fatigued feeling. The second one, and this is going to be for a lot of the gym folks out there, but protein powder, huge staple supplement for a lot of people, whether it's just as a meal replacement, whether it's to help you with your training or whatever it might be, is protein powders. So what I have done this past month that has been phenomenal for me is I switched from whey protein to a hemp protein. And the reason I did this is because I've had stomach issues for forever. Most of my close friends and people know this, but I've had stomach issues ever since early high school years, and it's just been consistent. And I had like the blood test done, I had a stomach biopsy done, I had all these sorts of things, I think it might have been intestinal biopsy actually. I don't know. But I had all these things. I've been to doctors, I've been to naturopaths, all of this sort of stuff, and very little of what they recommended actually helped. So what I've done in sort of to assist and almost like self-medicate is, that's when I started to fiddle with my diet and everything. So it's been a bit of a blessing and a curse at the same time. But one thing that still would bother it sometimes was protein powders. It would really upset my stomach, and I wanted to try to find a way to get around that. So I switched into getting whey isolates instead of just normal whey protein, and getting really good quality, getting New Zealand whey, stevia sweetened, so there wasn't any added sugars in it, stuff to make it even better, and it helped. It did help compared to just your classic protein powder. Stuff that was just pure, that didn't have a lot of additives, but it still was a little bit irritant to my stomach. So I figured, I don't want to keep doing this because, I use protein powder almost every day in either a smoothie or if it's a day that I'm working out post-exercise. So I wanted to try to find something that isn't going to bother my stomach at all. So I finally jumped ship on whey protein and switched to, I just got like an unsweetened, unflavored hemp protein from Canada Protein. And it's so much better. I never realized how much the whey protein actually bothered my stomach, but this is phenomenally better. You you're definitely going to want to put it in some form of a smoothie or add something to it. I don't think you're going to want to do just water and hemp protein. Not very appealing. But it is, if you have stomach issues, or if that's something that's, you find that like whey proteins and different protein powders are really hard on your stomach, try switching to a hemp protein, because it has been 100 times better for me compared to how the whey protein was for me. So that's another really big thing that, that I've learned, and that I'm so thankful that I switched over to, is getting just a good quality, not a bunch of additives, same sort of thing, just nice, pure, clean hemp protein powder, and it's way better. My stomach is much happier with me. So something to look into if you just want something that's a little bit easier to digest and a little bit easier on your stomach. And now the third one. This is the third thing that this past month has really brought to light for me. So 2 of my favorite classes that I'm in right now are counseling skills and sports psychology. And I had been kind of churning in my head the concept of how susceptible our mind and actions and everything is to influence and to cause misperceptions. And then in one of my other classes, we watched a video about how pain is mostly in the mind, and how the brain is a huge contributor to how we feel pain. And I thought it was really interesting. It started to tie in a lot of these thoughts that I was having of, how our brains are so marvelous, and they're so amazing. They can do all these really cool things, but they're also very susceptible, and they're also very influenced by our surroundings and our past experiences and all these underlying things. And it kind of started to put that into light of how easily it can be tricked, and how easily some of the decisions we could be making, we might think are the right decisions at the time, but are actually a result of our mind being susceptible to other things. So this was something that I've been kind of like churning around in my head quite a lot. And those 2 classes that I'm in, the counseling skills class and the sports psychology class, they have a lot of crossover, and I'm sure I'll talk about them again because they've been phenomenal classes thus far. And they're full of a lot of kind of amazing aspects. So it led me to kind of like wander with this idea and kind of keep going down this path. And I started kind of wondering how the structure of them I could start to apply to this thought process and to the this component of susceptibility that our mind has. And if you watch my intro video again, you kind of know how, the foundation of things I think is so important, and breaking things down to what's the foundation of it, and is that foundation a positive foundation in order to have something that's going to benefit our experiences grow out of it. So these classes have brought a lot of tools to help break things down. And what I learned is if you can structure and frame things in your mind better, it's going to have a huge influence over how you experience things. And I have a really hard time with this, because if something catches my interest, or if some sort of emotion spikes, I tend to kind of go off the wagon and get really wrapped up into it. And sometimes it's not for the better. It's not something that's actually benefiting me. It's just I overthink things quite a lot. And I know a lot of other people do too. It's not something that's unique to me. I'm sure of it. So, what I believe is breaking things down and recognizing their foundations. And these 2 classes have been really helpful in doing that. So, a lot of you might know the really short poem by Michael Lunig talking about how there's only 2 feelings, and those 2 feelings are love and fear, and how you can break them down and into more. But this is something that I really believe in, and up on your screen now, if you're watching this, is how those two things can break down. And to me, once I feel one or each of these reach a level of threshold, and I'm experiencing one of them to that level of threshold of that it could begin to influence decision or how my day will go, I'll break it down into these structures and try to look at it objectively so that my susceptibility and busy brain isn't getting tricked by something in my past or a sense of inadequacy or jealousy or greed or whatever it might be, and using sports psychology and motivational interviewing techniques on myself, which is kind of tricky because normally these are things that you're trying to use with other people in order to benefit their circumstances. So I was trying to figure out, how can I start to apply these things to myself without having kind of that confirmation bias of knowing exactly how they work. So I started to write things down and just to try to recognize my ambivalence and certainty depending on what it is. If I'm very certain of something, why am I so certain of it? And if I'm ambivalent to something, what's pulling, that tug of war between the two of going in one direction or the other, and what might be fueling that, whether it's, past experiences or things within me. So to kind of summarize and to bring this all together, what I started to do is I would use goal setting techniques for mental processes to help reconnect my behavior and decisions to my core principles. So what does that mean? What I started to do is basically look at these things of if something pushes me past that threshold of a concept of love or fear, break them down, see what might be fueling it, if there's any underlying things within me that are pushing me towards that, and looking at what those things might be and then relating them to my personal core values. And if it doesn't line up, then they must be overpowering. These things that are some sort of construct of my ego must be overpowering what I value most, and in turn is going to cause me to probably behave in a manner or make a choice that isn't going to help push me towards being the type of person that I want to be or experiencing the type of life that I want to live. So I'm a big fan of the numbers 3 and 5. I find that they're just the right amount of things that it can almost cover everything, and they're also a small enough amount to keep in the conscious part of our brain or to refer to. So it's not too much, but it's also not too little. So what I try to do is I'll have 3 core principles that I use to sort of guide my decision making and to help distinguish if I'm on the right path or I'm making the right decisions. So I'll look at these things that are pushing me beyond that threshold of either love or fear, and then look at how they relate to those 3 core values. And then I keep 2 core values in addition to those 3 to troubleshoot. So if there's an internal conflict and it relates to 2, and I can see that that's what's beginning to cause the ambivalence of it's relating to more than one of these core values, or if one of my underlying negative processes is too strong to have the core value overpower it, like if there's a sense of inadequacy or something like that, that's too strong for one of my core values to push the behavior, then I try to use these other 2 to help troubleshoot it and provide a further meaning in order to make it doable, and use goal-setting techniques from my sports psychology class to break it down into smaller steps and something that's easier for me to do, so that it's not so scary dealing with that self-conflict that might be caused by some sort of negative underlying feeling or process that's within me. So this is something that this past month has been really big in helping me defeat a lot of kind of little bad habits and kind of bad self-talk, because that's been something that I've been focusing a lot into, and I'm sure I'll talk about it again, is how important self-talk is. And it's something that is phenomenal to me when I started to actually think about it and actually write down some of my personal self-talk of just how atrocious it can be at times, and the way that we treat ourselves sometimes is astonishing and very negative. So this has been my kind of method of breaking some of that down and then realizing what kind of behavior is that negative self-talk promoting, and then relating it back to those core values and seeing maybe this isn't the right move for me to be making. Maybe I'm making a poor decision and I'm doing things that aren't going to benefit me and help me become the person that I want to be, and aren't fueling the positive aspects of who I am. So that's something that's really helped me a lot, and something that, if it sounds interesting to you, I encourage you to give it a try. And if it sounded a little bit confusing, I wasn't entirely sure how to word it. So if it sounds a little bit confusing and you want a bit of a better breakdown of it, please feel free to message me or contact me in some fashion, and I can spend a little bit more time kind of breaking down step by step exactly what I do, and hopefully help put it into more of a doable and organized fashion. So to recap, the three kind of main things that February sort of brought forward for me is sugar. Removing out sugar has made my energy level significantly better, and just a better feeling of health compared to when I was eating more sugars. Number 2 is switching to a hemp protein from a whey protein has been really, really good with my stomach, because I've had ongoing stomach issues for many years, and it's been extremely beneficial for that. So I recommend any of you who find that protein powders can be hard on your stomach to give a hemp protein, a good quality hemp protein that doesn't have lots of additives in it, a try. I get mine from Canada Protein, if that's of interest to any of you. And then lastly, just trying to get a good grasp of what might be fueling our behavior and what might be fueling our emotions, and setting a threshold for processes of love and fear, and then breaking them down to the foundations, and using goal setting and using your core values to gather an understanding of whether what you might currently be thinking or what you might currently be doing is beneficial for you as a person. All right. And now into the experiments. So this is something that I kind of fell off the wagon with, and that's why I wanted to re-bring it back in these videos, because it'll help me keep myself accountable. So this upcoming month, something that so many of the people that influence me and that I learn from do is they have a specific morning routine or ritual that just helps them start their day off as best as they possibly can. So this is something that I'm going to try to implement this upcoming month, and this is going to be my month experiment, is developing a morning routine that best suits me. So the first week, this past week basically, I've been trying to figure out exactly what that would look like. So this upcoming week, I'm going to put it to the test and then revise and evaluate it as needed, and then continue it for the rest of the month, each day, each morning, and see how it goes. So what to me seems like the most important things to get me started off right is to prime my mind, to prime my body, and to prime my breath. So what I'm going to try to do is have just a short little routine or ritual that helps to do that. So for priming my mind, what I find works best is writing and reading. So spending a little bit of time, about 5 minutes, just writing down thoughts, writing down things in a positive manner in order to have that foundation laid in my mind. And then reading the book of the month to just get a little bit of mental stimulation happening and a little bit of mental processing happening that isn't coming from a screen. And for me, I find that to be really important. If I jump on my phone or if I jump on my laptop right away first thing in the morning, I just find it starts a poor trend for the day. So just getting that kind of mental priming occurring for me is writing and then a little bit of reading. Next, priming my body. For me, what I like to do is I kind of created a little bit of like a flow, almost like yoga, but stretching and fitness type of movement that's specific to myself. So for me, a big thing is my hips. I have really tight hips. So I'll spend a little bit of time doing a little bit of flow yoga just to open up my hips. And then I work on my balance. So I do a lot of unilateral movements just in sequence, just to get my balance and get that neural connection going first thing in the morning. And then doing something where I'm inverted. So as you can see behind me, I have an inversion board. So that's one way if I'm feeling lazy. Or doing a headstand or a handstand against a wall or whatever it might be to get inverted first thing in the morning. And I don't know what it is about it. I'll have to look into it and see if there's a legitimate process behind it. But it just feels so good to get upside down. And it's something that actually my brother had mentioned a while ago, and it kind of stuck with me. And I was like, yeah, that's really true. Of getting upside down in the mornings, it helps wake up the body, and it helps kind of wake up your mind as well. And then lastly, priming my breathing. So what I find, and this almost ties into the rest of them as well, is what I will do is take as deep of an inhale as I can, and then I'll do 30-second exhales. So I'll try to have a consistent exhale pace that'll last 30 seconds before I take my next breath. And it's very, very challenging. It's something that I've read, a few people who are really into breathing that they will do just to get like the control. Because when I first started, I found that I would almost start to panic because I would just want to breathe again. But understanding that your mind tricks you a little bit with that, and controlling that breath, and then controlling the inhale that comes off of it. And I find it helps with establishing a connection and a control with my breath, and it helps with the priming of my mind and the priming of my body as well significantly. So that is going to be my little morning routine or ritual, and I always drink at least 500 milliliters of water first thing when I wake up, and then I'll have coffee or tea or whatever it might be with that, but topic for another day. So that's something I'm going to give a try for the rest of this upcoming month. So feel free to try it yourself and see if it's something that you like. And again, if you have questions or you're kind of wondering how would that look for you, feel free to message me, and I'd love to chat about it, and I'd love to throw out some suggestions, because we're all different. So what works for me might not work for you, and there might be little changes that you need to make. Your hips might be super flexible, so doing some sort of flow yoga for your hips might be not nearly as beneficial as it is for me. Maybe it's shoulders or your T-spine or something else that would be better for you as an individual to work on. So that's my month recap. That's February for me, and the three big things that I kind of took away from February. And something that you might want to try yourself is at the end of each month, kind of reflecting and looking back on that month and thinking of what were the top three things that you learned, and what are going to be the three things that you try to take away from it that are going to help your next upcoming month. And then if you continue that process, you'll see them build off of each other. And it's a really, really cool thing. And I recommend you do it and kind of record your thoughts and reflect often. It's a beautiful thing to do, and it really, really helps in moving forward and getting you to reach the goals that you might have. So I recommend it. Oh, the book. I almost forgot the book. So bad. I'm so bad at staying on pace with reading. So this month, I've been trying to finish this book for forever, so I don't have a book to recap. But this upcoming month, the book that I'm going to finish is The Rise of Superman. I'm about halfway through it currently, and it is a phenomenal book. The Rise of Superman by Stephen Kotler. I highly recommend it. It's all about achieving flow state and kind of optimal human performance and all of these sorts of things. Very well written, amazing author, really, really good book. So I recommend it if you want to try to read it this month with me. You can find it on Amazon or whatever it might be. It might be at your library potentially, but try to get a hold of it and you can read it along this month with me. And then at the end of the month, I'll give a recap of this book. But so far, I'm absolutely loving it. Phenomenal book. I highly recommend it to anyone who's interested in the process of the mind. And that's all. That's all I have for you today. Very short video. I'll try to do these at the end of each month. A little bit of a recap. Hopefully it'll be something that you can take away and apply to your own life.
Oh, for sure.